We are just going live on this end. We're just going to get started.
Oh, we're not
on
live.
Instagram. Thanks for waiting for us. We are live on Instagram, but not down here, which we are live now.
Looking good.
All righty. Amazing. I'm just going to turn this down. Awesome. Awesome. Everything is looking good on that end. Hello and welcome, everyone joining in right now. We are going live, and if you're listening to this on the podcast, I guess you're listening to it later on. We're here with Celeste. Celeste, hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
We're doing well, thank you. Celeste, if you would just like to give a little introduction to everyone joining in here about yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself, that would be amazing.
I am a filmmaker. I think all of you people are filmmakers. I mostly write and direct kids films, but I've done a few short docs for CBC, one of which is up for a Canadian Screen Award, or 2 Canadian Screen Awards. Super exciting. I've done short form, longer form. I also work in the art department as a Directors Guild of Canada member doing graphic design and motion graphics. And yeah, I write, direct, I do graphics, motion graphics. I've done props, production design, set deck, and I can edit. The best thing about working in film is, or not the best thing, but like working in film, you need to learn a bit of everything.
Well, what would you say is like your most favorite thing to do right now? Out of all the things that you've had your a chance to kind of dip your toes in, what would you say is your favorite?
Writing. I like writing, and I like writing kids stuff and mixed media kids stuff.
That's awesome. Is that what you do currently? Like, you're full time, like all you do is write and direct?
Right now, I do a bit of everything. I'm right now working on a TV show doing motion graphics, but I also have some writing gigs at the moment, and I'm pitching my own writing projects at the same time.
That's so cool. So why don't we start with talking a little bit about, how you got to where you were. You just mentioned about all these different roles and, hats you've put on being a part of the film industry. How did you start? And, from there, how did you get to where you were? What's your journey?
Well, I went to Ryerson for film, and from my thesis film at Ryerson, I made a kids film that went to a bunch of festivals. So we went to a bunch of festivals. After that, I've made, I think, about 4 more short films I've self-produced, done independently, as well as gotten grant money for. I've done 2 CBC Short Docs in the last few years. I have a feature doc that we're still trying to get made, and the whole time I've worked in the art department as well, because it's the main thing that pays me.
That's awesome. That's so cool. So if we can kind of go back to like the first half, just talking about short films and short docs and stuff like that. Can you talk a little bit about the workflow process behind that, especially when you're doing it yourself or trying to fund it yourself, produce it yourself? What were some of the things that you learned during that process that really helped you get to where you were? It's kind of a loaded question. It's very vague, but in the sense that how did you come up with the ideas?
Well,
and then
thing, I guess, for any project is it's all about the team you make. So any film is only as good as the team behind it. It's never. I think a lot of like the auteur vision is like it's one person's vision, but I feel like my films are successful because I work with great people. So
that's a really, really good answer. I feel like a lot of people kind of neglect the fact that you do need a really good team to create something incredible. And a lot of times, you know, especially people who aren't in the film industry, they'll mostly hear like, you know, a director, big director's name, or maybe an executive producer sometimes. And, you know, they see that name and they think that that person had all the decision, you know, they made every single creative decision, but you know, it is a team aspect at the end of the day. Who is like your right-hand man in the creative process? You know, while you're developing this idea, when you were like, you know, pitching it to people, did you have somebody with you to create that, like in that process?
Bunch of right hand men or women. I've worked with some really great producers. I've worked with one of my close friends is a DP. Another close friend is an animator. Or I often, depending on the film, is different people. Often the producer is huge. For my own films, I've written them all myself, and I've directed and I've production designed. I guess that it depends. I would say it's not one person; it's everybody. Yeah.
Awesome. I can tell you're a very humble person. You're just like, you know, everybody helped create, you know, this successful doc or something like that. Yeah. What about personally though? Like personally, did you have any challenges during your, you know, your creative process? Like, you know, when you're creating these ideas, I feel like a lot of times people are like, oh, you know, I don't know if this idea is going to fly, or they're really passionate about the idea, but they would, you know, sometimes neglect the fact that, like, you know, sometimes you want to hear what other people have to say. So like, you know, part of your process, did you reach out to friends and family and pitch this idea to them, or did you just kind of like, you know, start writing down a bunch of ideas and then just put your own work into making it what it was?
That's an interesting thing because I just had a meeting today, I had a pitch meeting today where I was talking about how important it is to get feedback, because most of my films up until now, not most of them, a lot of them, I just ran with it. They've done decently, but I haven't always gotten feedback. And I think having feedback just makes them stronger. Like even in film school, a teacher was like, yeah, it's great. Like one of the only notes I got in film school was my title was too long. That has nothing to do with it. So now I'm asking more for feedback, but I used to just kind of run with it, do what I liked.
Right. I think it's super interesting that you're really into making like kids shows. You're very into that industry. How did you first get involved into that? Was it just all of a sudden, or was it by choice? How did that work out?
I'd say it's completely by choice because, yeah, in Everest I made a kids film, and it's what I want to do. I like making films that are optimistic and fun. I like making films that are colorful and like where every day is an adventure, everything's like out there to discover. I don't want to make really heavy films, and I don't want to make. I want to make the film that I want to make, which are kids' films. It just happens, and I go for what I like as opposed to like trying to make myself do something that is not me.
Right. That makes sense. And I know you directed and wrote an episode of Sesame Street, which I'm guessing was a huge success for you as well to be in that position. Can you talk a little bit about your experience on there?
I wrote 1.5-minute segments, so very short segments, and I worked with a brilliant producer in Toronto on them. They were I did them remotely, so I pitched at TIFF Kids, and then we got chosen, and so I wrote and directed them. I had a producer in Toronto who produced them and brought on the team. I built the sets, and Sesame Street was always like we are right now, but it wasn't something that we were used to then. It was all done over Zoom, not Zoom. It was all done via email, their notes. And so twice a week I would send what I had, and then they'd give us feedback. But it was like they let me run with it quite a bit because they liked my film style. But yeah, it was an amazing experience, and it definitely opened doors. So what happened was I got the script. First, we got the script approved, and then we did the next step. We got the casting approved. We got the look approved and the storyboards. And then once we had the edit, we got like each stage was all emailing back and forth and uploading back and forth to their server. But they're really kind and supportive people. So everything we did, they gave kind feedback. The only trickiest thing was music. We had some like rearranging, but yeah, it was a good experience for sure.
And just to kind of reverse a little bit and talk about, opening doors and how, one thing kind of leads to another. I know we kind of already touched upon the topic of shorts, but I kind of wanted to know, we talked about the ones that helped you succeed in your career. What about shorts that maybe never made it to festivals? Can we talk a little bit about maybe your failures? Like, how many shorts have you created? Sorry, we just went black on the live stream here. So how many shorts have you tried to produce in total? And out of those, how many actually, made it to production?
Every film that I've made has gone to festivals. I have other things I've written and are on the back burner still trying to get made, but everything I've actually made has gone to festivals.
That's incredible. That's incredible. I don't think a lot of people can say that for sure. And
small ones, like my Rice and Feces film went to, I think, 9, maybe even fewer. And even my second year films went to a few festivals here and there. And then since then, yeah, every film I've made has gone to festivals, except for, I made one for CBC, a short doc for CBC that went straight to broadcast. But yeah, everything, it's painful when you get rejected, but I've never made something that was rejected from everything, which would be, that would be really painful for me not to get into festival, but
that's incredible.
Yeah, I'd like to talk a little bit about how you get these films into festival, because I know a lot of people here are most likely trying to get their series into festivals. What's the process you usually go through, and how have you had such a successful outturn from all of this? What's the secret?
Well, the key thing is to know what kind of festivals your films fit in. A lot of my films I've specifically applied to the kids' film festivals around the world. If you only go for TIFF, Sundance, Tribeca, you go crush your bank account, but it's also you're going to not get into all the giant ones, like if you Cannes and all the other ones. Go for the festivals that speak to your film. So my kids' films have gone to kids' film festivals. My docs have gone to doc film festivals. I even just, the same one that was up for a Canadian Screen Award is currently, recently won Best Animation at a festival called Big Hero Film Festival, which is all about optimistic films. So the festivals, look up festivals that speak to you in your film. And also, I also apply to some of the ones I can afford. So you start by your dream festivals, but then, you go for the ones that are affordable. Also, once you get into one festival, sometimes another festival will ask for your films, which has been, I've had that bunch, especially with the kids' film festivals, because all festivals, or almost all festivals, will have scouts from other festivals. So if your film did well at one festival, another festival might want it.
Right. I mean, regardless of the type of festival, I feel like it's always going to be very competitive, right? So I feel like, there's definitely a smarter way to getting into these festivals. But what is how do you know when you have a good idea as a writer, as a director, when you're coming up with a concept to bring to production and to showcase in these festivals? How do you know when you have a good idea? Is there something in that just clicks with you and you just hit the ground running and you just want to, you know, go at it full throttle? Like, how do you know when you have a good idea?
If you had a bad idea, you won't get crew. Like, crew won't sign on to a bad idea. Especially on a short film budget. You'll get crew because you're a nice person and you have a good idea that they want to be a part of. I make the films I want to make. So, like, if I want to make this film, if I like my script, if I find someone like a producer who wants to make it with me, if I find a team. Also, if you get grant money, that means something like a jury of people like your idea. The best ideas are the ones that are honest to who you are. So I'm not going to make a film about I won't make a film about something I don't know anything about or something I don't care anything about. Like, I love superheroes and I'm not a superhero, but I wouldn't make a film about a race car driver, I don't think. Or like an oil tycoon. I don't like either of those things.
Right. That makes sense. And I feel like as a writer, a lot of the times, writers are by themselves, stuck in a room, not on a set. How do you go about creating these connections to be able to later be able to use them so you can, get producers to help you go into these festivals?
Well, for one thing, I am often on set because I work in film too. And I think that's the best thing for a good director. Like, a writer doesn't need to necessarily be on set, but a good director should be able to have a good understanding of the other departments and it's even better if they have a skill outside directing that they bring in to make themselves stronger directors. But also film festivals, like, 2 of my films, I've used a lot of my friends from the Real Asian Film Festival. I meet people at TIFF Kids. Yeah, the people you meet along the way, you need to meet other people because, as I said, it's a team. Filmmaking is all about the team, and you can't not have a team. You need to find people.
Right. So for whoever's listening and is a writer, especially, you should go for different roles right in there and try to make a connection with everyone on set. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I would say a director should have other roles. A writer needs to be able to find a director that they trust to bring their story to life.
Right. That makes sense. And that's what I'm saying. It's really hard as a writer to be on set because, like, what writer is usually on a set usually, right? You're writing in the back and then you're like, now I need to find people to give this out. So as a writer, I feel like it's very hard to make connections. And I think the strategy you use is really good.
Actually, because I work in film, on every television set I've ever been on, the writer is on set for their episode. The writer is always on set for their episode, unless they're contracted that, but there is always a writer on set, or even 2, sometimes 3, because, on the fly, you might need to change lines. So, like, right now, COVID's different. I'm not on set. But, every set will have writers on set, too. Even short films. I know a friend who wrote a short film. She was on set every day. Writers are often the producers on short films, too.
Right. But I mean, to get to the point where you're a writer on set, like, it does need the skill of networking, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, if you're getting to that point, as a writer, you need to find a director you trust. Like, I write and direct my stuff often, but if you're like just figuring it out, just starting off, you need to start by networking and finding people who can bring your stories to life.
Right, that makes sense. Since we're on this topic, what's some advice you would give to someone wanting to pursue a career like yours?
Which one? I have a few careers.
Yeah, honestly, if you can talk about all of them, like writing, art, directing, that would be good too.
directing and writing, you definitely need to be true to yourself. You need to tell stories that speak to you. You can't lie, because you're putting a part of yourself in both writing and directing. So you definitely need to be true to yourself and true to your vision. You need to be strong in your vision. But like, how do you get there? You can for writing, you can enter a lot. There's a lot of screenwriting contests. I haven't done that. I kind of just jumped into making things. But you can enter screenwriting contests where you can get recognized by, like, there's a lot of high up people who lead the screenwriting contests. And for directing, I would say, yeah, just start by making little things, and just start by making things so that people can notice you, because you can't just create a like magnum opus no one and then never make it because it's too big. Start by making things that are doable and then go from there. And then for art department, like especially in Toronto, there was so much work. Join the unions and just do it. I think with film, like, you kind of just need to jump in and do it, as opposed to like thinking about it and contemplating for ages. Like, even with writing, there's fast turnaround. If someone likes your script, you'll get notes and you need to turn it around fast. Film's a really fast industry, and it's just jump in and do it.
Right. Maybe for some people out there who are writers or directors, and their idea, they've been working on it for a while, but no one's really picked up on it. What would be a piece of advice you would give to someone like that?
Are we talking mainly Canada or all over right now?
Yeah, all over.
Because in Canada, there's a group called Ink Canada, run by Cam Walton, who is an amazing like community of film writers, and a lot of them direct to, and just filmmakers. In this amazing community where you just meet people, and it's not about pitching, but it's a place where you can start meeting people, learning, and networking. Go to film festivals. I started off volunteering at film festivals. I volunteered at TIFF. You need to start building your team. Make it like your first, if you're going to direct, especially, your first script needs to be makeable. It can't be entirely VFX. So start off by making a script that's got heart, but is doable. Find a strong cast to be the voice of your film, and like whatever it is that makes your film shine, do that. Make something that will make you stand out and make your film stand out.
Right. So since we are on the topic of connections, I kind of want to get it into school, because you did go to school. Do you think a lot of your connections were made when you were in school, or did you make most of your connections out of school?
A bit of both. I'd say my first films were all school connections, but everyone gets busy because it's a busy industry, and they have branched off in different directions. So a lot of my connections now are outside of school. A lot of them are from working in film. A lot of them are from film festivals. I'm involved with BIPOC TV and film, so I have a lot of friends through that organization. And then also, I volunteer and have had my films in and help out with the Toronto International Real Asian Film Festival, and I've been part of TIFF Kids. So I've stayed in the filmmaking community, in the film community, since graduating. So the community, my connections just grow and grow, and it's different. I end up working with different people.
Just for people who are maybe just hopping right now and not fully aware of the conversation we're having, but basically, just to summarize, what you're basically saying is that regardless of school or in the film industry, you should be making connections. I feel like connections are so important, and you have to have the ability to kind of step out of your comfort zone and introduce yourself to people for whatever you are. Start handing out cards and grabbing phone numbers. I think it's so important in this industry that, regardless of what level of professionalism you're at, like you are still going to be needing to talk to people and stuff like that. What is something you wish you knew back in school? Is there something that you know now that you wish you knew when you first started your career?
There's so much that would be known before.
Right. Could you give us a couple examples? Because a lot of our followers, a lot of people joining today are new in the industry, or they're thinking about starting their pursuit of film, and maybe people are scared. What are some things that would help them if they were just starting?
Especially in Canada, people in Canada, it would be amazing to learn about grant writing before just jumping into it. We didn't learn about grant writing in school, and that would have been something that would have been huge, because so many people, when you're making your first films, that's where you apply for money and which grants you can apply for, how to apply for grants, what is a smart, how to speak about yourself and your artist statements. Yeah, grants are all about who you are and why you need to tell the story, and that was never focused on in school. So was pitching. How to do a good pitch is such a huge thing. I think it's being taught more, but when I was in school, we didn't learn about pitching that much.
Mm-hmm. Since we're on the topic of school, this is kind of something we've talked about with a lot of people on this podcast / live stream series. And in your own opinion, do you think for people in 2021 going to film school, do you recommend it? What are the pros and the cons of school?
It's expensive. That's a con.
Definitely.
It's expensive. A pro is you meet people. A great example of a filmmaker who didn't go to school and made it big without it is, I know a guy who started making films in high school when I think he was like 16. He got hype, and I think he still makes films, and he just taught himself in high school. In his school, he went to an arts high school, but he attended festivals, he made friends, and yeah, he made it without having to go to film school. Film school is good for making connections. If you're interested in doing any of the tech areas of film, like lighting, camera, sound, all of those you'll learn a lot about in film school. It depends on the school. And I think each school changes and the professors change. I think for a lot of the schools, night school is sometimes better. Well, not better, but there's a huge advantage of going to night classes, because you get people who have been in the industry working all day, then doing the evening classes, who want to teach as well. So you get people who are right now in the industry. I think a lot of the colleges are really great, because they get co-op placements and internships, which means you're right in the industry right away and you have the connections once you're in school. I wasn't in it, but I know I've been on film sets where we've had people from Humber or Sheridan on our sets.
Yeah, that makes sense. If you were to say yay or nay for school, what would be your answer?
I think it's completely different depending on the school and the person. So I can't say yay or nay, because people thrive in different situations and different schools offer different things.
Right. That makes sense. So if you're going to school, just do really, really, really good research on the school you're going to. Is there any places you recommend in Toronto that you really like?
Well, I went to Ryerson. A lot of people went to Ryerson, because the other thing about school is it looks good on a resume, especially the schools that are well known. So Ryerson, if you want to do animation, Sheridan's amazing. Also, Sheridan has a good film program. I know a lot of people from Humber and George Brown. I think York has a lot of great people, especially in writing. Yeah. And Toronto Film School. I know people at Toronto Film School. I don't think any school wants to give you a bad experience. Every school wants to do well by its students, so they're going to try their best.
Right. Yeah. So me and Danny, for people listening and didn't go to school, we've been making videos since we were like in elementary school together. So I don't think we really needed to go to school. But we did still go and visit Toronto Film School because we did have some friends there. So when they were making their films and stuff, we were like, hey, like, let us join in. And we went and used their equipment and we got the same experience. So for people who might maybe not have the money, try to join groups that are related to that school and see if you can become friends with a couple people and kind of, you know, put yourself in there with their projects. A cool question I had. Sorry.
I don't think schools would be happy with people not at the schools using their equipment. But if you want cheaper equipment, there's other ways to go about it too. Like Charles Street Video, their memberships are really well priced and their equipment's great and much cheaper than if you went to White's or some of the bigger production houses, as well as I think Trinity Square Video and Lyft. So there's places where you can get equipment outside of school too.
Right. I totally agree. Yeah, schools would not be happy if you used their equipment. Yeah, what I meant is find people in the school, and then when they're working on projects, like work on it as well, because then you get access to the bigger equipment like RE cameras, and you can get used to using that type of equipment.
And the connections too, right? Like we've been kind of talking so much about how important connections are. And again, if you don't have the finances or maybe the schedule to go to school, I don't know, life is complicated. Maybe you have a family to take care of, but you still want to pursue film and you can't really go to school, even if there's night school available. Something that Poy mentioned was us volunteering our time on other people's student sets just to kind of help them. But at the same time, we got the experience of being a part of a student set and we were able to make connections, which we still use today. So one of our closest friends, Craig, he was a producer in school, and now that he's graduated, like we always work with him. Sometimes not even on film related things. He's just, you know, he was such a great, genuine guy, and we continue to you know,
and I think
use our friendship together.
A huge thing. You mentioned volunteering because like film is an expensive thing, and I don't really believe in not paying people, but I often trade off. Especially once you're outside of school, you should pay your crew. Especially when you have, like, if you have an Aston Martin in your shot, you can't get away not paying your crew. But you can. One thing I've done, and I think my friends do, is you can trade off like skill volunteering. Like I wrote a script for my editor, in trading skill sets because everyone has different skills and you can offer those as opposed to money is trade.
100%, right? It's just an exchange of value. You know, they're getting something out of it, and so are you. Just making sure that that's fair. You know, everyone can benefit from a good collaboration.
What's one of the things you wish you had known at the beginning of your career?
You've already asked this one.
Oh, have I?
I kind of touched upon this question, but you also said there was a lot of things you wish you knew, right?
And it would have been better to learn a bit more about what each position does, because there are so many positions you don't know about in school. You just know the basics, but there are so many. It would be good to learn what each position does and how each position works in relation to the other position.
100%.
Especially if you're going right into an on-set job. The last thing you want to do is have your phone on set. Like code of ethics of a film set, as well as who you ask. Like you go to your third AD instead of first AD, and just how each position works in relation to each other. And anyone who's making their own film, you need to know about things like I work in the art department. You need to learn about clearances and what you can and can't show. Like the last thing you want to do is have all your characters have Nike symbols on their clothes and having like big top 40 music in the background, because that won't get into festivals. So understanding what is and isn't allowed in film too.
Right. I kind of want to go into a little bit of fun, and maybe we can get a story out of this, but I was wondering, was there a situation where you had to get a very difficult prop that you couldn't find?
I'm trying to think. I don't know. Very difficult prop. I had on one of my films, because my dad actually works in the industry. My dad's one of the best key scenics in Toronto. So I wanted a rock that would be on a green screen, and I had the most ornate, elaborate, realistic looking rock. I also had a tombstone. It was made of plywood, but looked like real stone, because my dad can paint better than most people, and especially in terms of scenicking. So I'm lucky that I had some of the best props you could ask for, and I got them for free. Again, trading skills and asking favors from people who believe in you. A lot of my films have had very professional people helping me build my sets, lend me tools. I had, like, one of my last films, I had a fog machine that we borrowed from a real effects house for free. Yeah, again, it all comes down to I work in film, so I know these people who believe in me and let me stuff. So yeah, I'd say my rock and my tombstone was two of the most impressive looking rocks in Tombstone, if you would have it. Costuming, I wanted to get, well, the funniest thing, so in terms of funny things, is I had a film that had a ghost in it, and in order to create the ghost effect, we needed dark things behind the ghost. So, like, dark things in the background, so I borrowed piles of fake Christmas trees, so that if we had an empty spot in the background, we knew the ghost would go be superimposed on top. We built a Christmas tree to put in the background as trees, just so we had a dark texture as opposed to being on top of the blue sky.
Right. That's pretty funny. As I kind of want to get into failures, and talking about failures, what's one of your biggest failures you've had, and what did you learn from it?
I don't know. Like, as I said, I've never made a film that hasn't gone anywhere. I've learned more about how to communicate with people. I've learned how to do better. The best thing I've learned in terms of failures is how to deal with getting fired. Because and I've never done anything wrong on set, but sometimes you get let go. It's just how the industry works, and it's painful. And my friend Brad describes it better than anyone else, and that's that it's the arts and it's the film industry, like anything like the arts, you're putting something of yourself into it. So there's so much emotion in everything. So it will always hurt, but you need to realize that everyone's put emotion into things there, and that you do need to let things go sometimes. But that's difficult. Yeah, I wouldn't say I've ever fully failed, because I've had everything. Well, one thing I made that was supposed to go to air never went to air, but I'm still happy with how it looked. So I wouldn't say it's a failure, and the people who commissioned it still like me. So I don't know. I don't think there are failures. You can't do anything wrong because you're always growing.
That is a great mindset to have, for sure. I mean, we didn't really mean failures as in you completely bombed the project, everyone was pissed at you, production burned to the ground, but mistakes that you made that you wish you could have done better, things, during your journey. that were obstacles for you or setbacks that you were able to grow from. But like you said, you know, you are a growing person, you're growing in your field, and everything that comes your way is a part of your growth. So that is a great mindset to have. I feel like filmmaking is much like entrepreneurship. You know, you are marketing yourself, you are growing yourself, like they're very closely related. And I think filmmakers have to adopt this type of mindset. You know, it's not so linear, the filmmaking world. You will often adopt, you know, many different hats and many different roles. And it's important to know how each role can contribute to the success of, you know, your final product. Speaking of different hats, I kind of wanted to know a little bit more about, you know, what you do in the art department. I feel like that's such a important role that is not really talked about enough or given credit to. But, you know, you see it in films and you see it in short films, you know, whatever you're doing, like the set design, the production design, how much it contributes to the immersion of this world that you're trying to have the viewer experience, right? How do you go about even thinking about a set?
I production design smaller things, like all my own things, but I work with production designers who have tons and tons of skills. What I do in the art department as my like everyday job is I do graphics and I do motion graphics. So whenever you see posters in the background, I'll make those. I'll make fake products, like in the fridge I've made quinoa soup, milk, jam, like labels. So I'll make all the labels. I'll make greeting. So I'll make the emblems for cars, like a police car. But most recently, I do a lot of motion graphics because it was my way of climbing the ladder. So in terms of motion graphics, whenever you see a character searching something on the computer or on the phone, I'll make that as a video file in After Effects and export it as a video that we then put onto phones.
Right. Well, actually, I'm kind of curious about graphics as well, because you know, graphics vary so much. Like there's so many different styles and ways to create like a visual effect, but it's like figuring out the style that you want to go with. How do you make that decision? Even on your own personal projects, right? Like I'm sure you've probably switched styles several times depending on what you're trying to go for,
or the era it's in, like
yeah.
the year.
But how do you make that decision? Like how do you decide?
Well, for my own stuff, is whatever I feel best fits the script. Like my last film was like in terms of graphics, it was low on graphics, but like the editing, I wanted the Edgar Wright. You need to make films and to work in the art department. You can't ignore that filmmaking has existed forever. So you research, you watch other stuff, you replicate style if you like. I've worked with designers who will have like famous paintings and they want to like replicate that look, or like everyone who make like designers and DPs especially, they know art and they know photography and they know filmmaking, so they know what's come before them so that they can replicate and not copy, but so much as I can't think of the word, but like do an homage to what they love in other people. And I'd say like even the first ever filmmakers probably worked using I'm running a battery. Probably the first ever filmmakers probably looked at their favorite paintings. Like painters, everyone looks to who came before them and learns from them, as well as it is enriched by what came before them and does their own spin on it.
Right. So finding inspiration from the people around you and the things that you just enjoy and just generally, you know, inspires you.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Aside from just taking this back a little bit, aside from people and connections, what are some resources that have helped you get to where you are?
Well, as I said, in Canada, I don't know if it's outside Canada, but we have a great organization called BIPOC TV and Film, where they even have a site called Hire BIPOC, which is getting more Black, Indigenous, and people of color into roles in the film industry. I think that's really important, especially now. A lot of the film festivals have outreach programs. Like I pitched at the International Real Asian Film Festival, I pitched at Plan and Focus, and I pitched at TIFF Kids, and I've pitched at Hot Docs. So all these festivals offer industry experiences. So even if you're very new to film, getting industry passes for festivals, you'll automatically meet people and you'll automatically learn. So it's almost better. It is better in school. You get talks from industry professionals. I definitely say buying industry passes, they're a bit expensive, but they just open so many doors.
I know you're running low on battery here, so we won't try to keep you for too much longer, so we can kind of finish off this podcast / live stream with a nice outro. But I did have a question, and now I'm totally gapping after I started talking.
Well, since Danny's coming out with his question, where can people connect with you online if they want to find you, and also on the podcast?
I have a website called that's www.pennyfarthingpictures.com for the vintage antique bicycles. So PENNYFARTHING pictures.com. And that's why I have all my films up. I obviously have Instagram at Exploits with Celeste. And I do have Twitter, but I don't use it very much. It's Celeste Koon, and that's it. I guess, yeah, I would talk all about like making connections, but I'm not overly huge on social media. I do social media, but not to the extent of a lot of people. I'd say the best connections I made, as I said, were at festivals and at screenings and events. Filmmaking is a very hands-on thing, so I find it easier to meet people in person. Not in COVID, but even like in-person events. I've been going to Ink Drinks, which is Ink Canada's writers talk, end of the week talks, where you just catch up, you talk about what you're working on, what issues you face, like, oh, I have this issue with my story, or can you give some suggestions, or I'm looking to pitch to this, who would I pitch to? There's a lot of online groups too, but I wouldn't, yeah.
Yeah, so social media is great. I mean, you can definitely build a brand around your filmmaking and, DM people who you would love to work with. But I feel like social media is heavily saturated. There's always people reaching out and trying to connect. So sometimes it's easy to get lost in that fog. But 100% introducing yourself in real life and making that impression will definitely last longer and probably be more effective to build a very strong network of people who are going to help you in your career. And I'm actually really glad you kind of talked about, like, especially now during COVID, because it reminded me of my question. Before we kind of close off, I wanted to know where you think the industry is going. There's a lot of different trends going on. There's a lot of things that changed since COVID. Where do you think the industry is headed? Do you have any opinions on like what's going to be happening next?
I don't have an opinion because I don't think I'm high enough, and I am not a producer. So I don't have the kind of say that decides where the industry is going. I don't think it's going to change that much. Like, as I said, I'm working right now. You wear masks. Construction has built plexiglass barriers around the desks, but I don't think it's going to change that much. I think it's just going to keep going. That's the thing about film. It never did stop. It stopped for a few months, but film's back happening. Film will keep happening. It's busier than ever. So I think it's going to be the same. I think people will be more careful, and sick days will not be frowned upon in the industry. But I don't think things are going to change that much, which is not necessarily a bad thing because film works.
Right. I think before we head out here, is there anything you're working on that people should look out for? Anything upcoming?
Well, both of my CBC Short Docs are on CBC Gem, and I will be digitally at the Canadian Screen Awards in May, where I'm nominated and my film's nominated for awards. I'm hoping to pitch. I'm pitching right now and hoping to have some of my own shows eventually made. But yeah, bit by bit. The thing is, it's a fast-moving industry, so maybe tomorrow I'll have something new, but right now it's all up in the air.
That's awesome and very, very exciting. Well, we want to thank you so much for hopping on and joining this live stream. I'm sure a lot of our followers and people who joined today are going to get a ton of value from the information you had to share. And I think that's it. I had so much fun learning about your journey and digging a little bit into your brain. And again, just thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks. Oh, and I saw a message. My film, the one that's up for awards, is called Love Letters from Everest. And if you look it up on YouTube, it's also on CBC's YouTube page. So Love Letters from Everest. And it's the story of my grandparents. It's a love story while my grandfather was on Everest in 1956.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, Celeste, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time. We wish you the best luck, usually on the awards. I hope you'll be holding a golden trophy on there. But yeah, thank you again.
Thank you. I'll see you later then. Yeah.
Amazing. I don't have really much to say on this. Tomorrow we have someone coming up. I guess it doesn't matter on the podcast then that we have someone coming up because it'll just be released to you guys. But yeah, enjoy your day. Have a good one. And make sure to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It would mean a lot to us. Thank you.